Yo, I am the Foul Hooked Whitey. I'm back. I'm coming to you not live from East Rosebud Studios in Billings, Montana. And I do have a rant today. I've got a rant that's based on desperation I saw in a quality outfitter's face. And that desperation, that I saw coupled with some of the anxiety that I've seen down in Wyoming since I've professionally expanded down there in the faces of outfitters, guides, made me think about an issue that's going to be more and more and more of a hot topic. And that topic is limiting access on certain blue ribbon fisheries that involve heavy foot, boot, and float traffic. For example, in Montana, the Bighorn River. But before I talk about any of that, fly fishing Nielsen ratings came in. And our podcast, The Foul Hooked Whitey, has exploded. I've gone from 4 listeners to 7. We've almost doubled in a week. That includes the usuals. My bloodsucking ex-wife and her attorney. Hopefully my most recent ex-wife. A couple of bots. And then the kid from Sheridan has started to listen again, so we're blowing up. The amount of traffic on some Montana fisheries during the peak season, which is Memorial Day to Labor Day, is to the point of too much. You limiting access in any respect based on any policy or rules or laws or whatever is it's a touchy subject, and it's a touchy subject with the Foul Hooked Whitey. I don't believe in limiting anybody's access to anything. But because of the massive population shift in our country and how the Rocky Mountains have gained so many people just living here, recreating here, fishing here, hunting here, just it's doubled to tripled plus inside of a decade, 12 years, I'm sure. And to say somebody can't be here is commie, but it's gotten to the point where I saw in an outfitter that does good business in this area, and not just the Bighorn River. He does a lot of business in outfitting, period, and he's very ethical, and he's very good, and he's a soft-spoken dude, but he can sure, speak up when he needs to. I asked him, I said, hey, I heard you were, to go down and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, no, I canceled down there just because of rivers so grassy, blah, blah, blah. I said, so I stayed up here. And he says, it's just absolutely a shit show. And then he shook his head. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, the Bighorn River right now. The Bighorn River is just become ridiculous as far as boat traffic. This is a significant comment from a savvy, experienced outfitter guide on the Bighorn River, and we're talking Montana. Yeah, it was a bit of a personal conversation, but I could see it in his face. I could see it in his eyes. He was deeply concerned because of the unprecedented boat traffic. And for him to feel that way, I don't think it was just angry August in him. I think he was professionally assessing here, there's too many fucking people floating on this river as business, as blah, blah, blah. And I thought, and he brought up a couple of things. He says, number one, the Jesus Lodge. And, I never heard of this organization being referenced as a Jesus Lodge, although it's a lodging entity. And I'm going to respectfully not drop any names here because I want to be just very, very sincere from the inside with my, listenership of 7. Okay. And when he kind of looked at me and the first thing he said was the Jesus Lodge. And that means that this nonprofit, which operates out of Fort Smith, what they do is they provide pastoral respite for preachers. And they do it through the outdoors. And over the last 8, 10, 12 years, I've seen this organization evolve to like a haphazard guiding organization, including recruiting kids that didn't know dick, not only as guides and oarsmen, but also even as anglers. They certainly have grown from that, and I've got a chance to know some of this lodge's guiding entity doing business with me, both in Wyoming and in Billings. They're good people and they're good kids. But this organization, which has been successful and is definitely a nonprofit, they definitely over the last 10 years have added a lot of fucking traffic on the Bighorn River. And again, as a nonprofit, Christian-based nonprofit. And that's their deal all the way. But it was interesting to me how that was the first thing that my friend, this outfitter, said was he said the Jesus Lodge, because they're going to have professionally licensed guys at the Jesus Lodge, no doubt. And I know plenty of them in doing that business that are competent and good anglers and men, young men. But it's hard to equate that guiding with the non-Jesus Lodge guiding, which involves somebody paying $650 just to, get somebody to row for them and get them on trout as a professional fishing guide in Montana. So that organization, that nonprofit, has been very successful, which again has added a lot more folks on the river. That's why this outfitter complained about it. And, that to me that's an interesting addition to the volume of traffic on our blue ribbon fisheries would be the nonprofits. Obviously a standard outfitter guide, I mean, fuck yes, it's all profit. That's his livelihood. That's his business. That's his shit. But when you've got, a board of directors, and then you've got on point people, including the purchase of quality lodging to, do their nonprofit business. This organization's decked out. They roll in some really nice motorcades, and they've got all nice clack-craft boats. So it's a well-funded nonprofit. And the rub with that would be that standard guide or outfitter, like my friend's saying, okay, why are they adding 12, 15 boats a day on this river in the peak? Where's who's getting paid? Where's the, what? The model, I believe, with this organization is that basically they provide respite free of charge to a pastoral group or individual who wants to come out and enjoy this and actually, kind of take away the pressures of being a pastor. It can't be easy being a pastor. And don't think there's any sarcasm in that. So that's what it is to kind of come and unwind. Obviously, they either solicit big donations from private individuals, or pastors pay, what a great week, here's $1,000. Here's $500. Here's $2,000. Whatever. I don't quite know. But it's not the traditional recreating, hiring a guide entity. And the beef with this outfitter was the explosion of volume on these rivers and how these nonprofits, this Jesus Lodge, is able to operate in the same manner that they are. So this particular nonprofit, when it all started out, they really weren't putting good good quality or product on the river as far as guiding, as far as knowledge, rowing ability, etiquette. And, even though they were out there doing their mission, getting these pastors out on water, they were gumming it up. And so I think that is, the reason my outfitter friend said the Jesus Lodge is because it's been a problem to them. And so that's part of the boom. He also mentioned the big shop. In these small fly fishing communities, you're going to have one or two or three or four shops or outfitting entities. They're going to gobble up over half the business. And that includes the trips out on the water. And if that shop or that lodge has a good reputation, I'm sure their business is as good as they can fill it with guides. But it still is this other outfitter's concern that the amount of volume that they're adding to the fishery because of their business model is making it not as viable for, everybody that wants to be out there. I mean, you could have literally 60, 70, 80, 100 boats in between 0 to 9 mile stretches or 3 to 6, 8 mile stretches. And I had a nice lady and her husband in the billing shop yesterday who commented that they had floated the lower river, which is not nearly as common as the upper river to float. And she commented on, we've never seen it as busy down there. So what does all this mean? This all means that probably at some point, there's going to have to be some order established. A blue ribbon fishery in southern Wyoming called the Platte just had, for that river, monumental changes to, I believe, both its outfitting and guiding expectations and regulations and down to the public. It goes into effect, I believe, in 2026. I should know this, and it includes some very earth-shattering concerns for a world-class fishery. And, Wyoming doesn't seem to regulate nearly as much as Montana does when it comes to the health of fisheries. But this was brought on by necessity. And that's because a great fishery was getting piss-pounded with the volume of the Rocky Mountains now. And it was starting to show. When you are netting a fish that's got 1 or 2 hook marks in its face, mouth, that fish is, surviving, right? But that fish is also being caught repeatedly. And, wow, that, you see that on some of these prolific tailwaters, right? Where these fish are just being caught more than a few times in their lifetime. So the look on my outfitter's face and his concern and the way he shook his head made me realize for the first time that, something's going to have to be looked at on some of these fisheries, at least in our area, to protect the fishery from overvolume and just motherfucking humans being humans. All right? That's the end of episode 1. I'm the Foul Hooked Whitey. I'm out.